Okay, we almost closed the introductory chapter. In the introductory lectures, I try to define most important terms and scientific background of environmental history. Okay, we define the civilization's background, Judeo-Christian heritage and Greek heritage, later the scientific background, early environmentalist, geographer, historian, ecologist, and so. And finally, we arrive to the definition, who are environmental historian. It's possible you remember, jump back a little bit, no, in this direction. It's former slide, I remember not this slide series. A definition of you, Donald Hughes. No, here. Okay, it's before happened, somewhere. Okay, Donald Hughes. There is in this slide series, or necessary jump a little bit more backward. Okay, here. Donald Hughes, professor of environmental history at the Denver University, defined which are the conditions to be environmental historian. And three conditions defined, three criteria. The first one, necessary to accept that physical environment and society is a unit. The frame of this unit are ecosystem, a historical ecosystem. The second one, open methodology. In the last lecture I spoke about partly methodology of sciences, physics and geography, biology and history. Each methodology usable for reconstruct partly how changed the physical environment, climate and generally the physical environment, and how reacted the humans for environmental challenges. Okay, the methodology. And we arrive to the last criterion, space and time. We have to speak a little bit what mean in environmental history case studies, space and time. Look at first a space. Time. Time. It's not a philosophical approach, it's a practical approach. The first condition for defining the meaning of time, how we are able timing. The first indicator and first background of timing are trajectory and trajectory of planets and astronomical experiences. Not by chance, two kinds of calendaries invented in the human history. Sun-based calendary. Recently we are using the Gregorian sun-based calendar, former time until the end of 16th century a Julian calendar, but both were a sun-based calendar. We are following the rate or trajectory of sun or trajectory of earth around the sun. But very popular in the historical past a moon-based calendar. For example, old Chinese calendar, moon-based calendar, old Jews calendar, moon-based calendar, and old Muslim calendar, similarly moon-based calendar. But recently, because the world globalized by European culture, therefore the generally used is a sun-based calendar. The second milestone, a vegetation period. This is the consequence of agrarian revolution, domestication of plants and domestication of animals. In consequence of domestication of plants, increase the importance of vegetation period, the growing season, for example, plowing, sowing and harvesting. Therefore, the second milestone, the vegetation periods. The third one, liturgical hours. Somebody know how many times necessary to pray in the Muslim world? How many times? 5 times. Recently, its impression we are majority of European a hobby Christian. There is a free time go to the church, not a real how the name is a B sector as I define in the football fans. We are not the member of the B sector, but in the traditional Christian heritage, at least 4 times had to pray. Not so far from the Muslim heritage, but before appearance of mechanical clocks, a diarist who note in the diary time the event according to position and the distance, the praying time. For example, wrote that after half hour from the second prayer by day. This was the timing, that means. And finally appeared the mechanical clocks. Mechanical clocks in Europe appeared in the 12th century, but it's not standardized clocks. Some part of the clocks turn right to left, other one left to right. But on the time of Enlightenment, it's 18th century, standardized. Therefore, recently the normal turning direction of clock is left to right. But some district, some area, some cities survive the old style clocks. For example, if somebody visits in Prague, capital of Czech Republic, one district named Josefov district. Some old style clocks survive and turn right to left. And the tourist who bad informed in this case is very surprising. Half hour had 2 o'clock and recently 1:30 because turned back. And the scale changed according to turning direction of the clock. Mechanical clocks appeared in 12th century, but very interesting, somebody know when standardized the zone of time. Somebody know when and why? No? Proliferation of railway network. Because in the case of railway network, it's very important to define when we'll arrive from one station to other, the train. It's not a joke, because the time, the local time, which we are able to define, for example, a sundial, it's a different. Each place, each settlement, the local time are different. But organizing a railway network, it's not possible, because necessary standardized the timetable. No, without standardized time zone and timetable, but we are on the border area, because officially we should to be the part of Eastern European time zone and time area. Somebody know why Hungary didn't a part of Eastern European time zone? Somebody know? Because we are a part of Austro-Hungarian monarchy. And therefore, for politicians of Austro-Hungarian monarchy, which majority connected to Central European time area, it's very important to connect whole of them, because it's a ridiculous that inside of the monarchy using 2 time scale, not so large empire walls. Okay. Look at the measuring tools of the timing. The first and the simplest version, sundial. It's one stick, and there are 2 weaknesses of sundial. During cloudy weather and during the night it's not usable, obviously. The second one, water clock. It's 2 barrel, it's flowing, and there is a scale on the barrel, and flowing go and back. It's introduced by Greek scholars. Incense burner, you know which is the incense burner? Somebody know the movie of Ip Man? No, nobody? Ip Man was a master of Bruce Lee. It's a kung fu warrior, and he spent his life. 4 Ip Man movie made in the last decade, and he was a master of kung fu in Hong Kong, in China. And the form of fight in China was a typical time by incense burner. Burn an incense, two masters jump to the round table, and when burned down the incense, who left on the table was the winner. It's very simple rules organize the Kung Fu fight. Okay, and the candle played the same timing function in the monastery and the monastery world of Christendom. And finally appeared the mechanical clocks. These are the reference astronomical or vegetation processes, environmental processes, and these are the devices. But look at a little bit, not philosophical, but more practical on the halfway toward philosophical approach. Look at how thought a historian about a time. A classical, traditional historian of the 19th century defined the time as linear, irreversible, and cumulative process. Why? Linear means the process of history is flow with the same speed into the direction of future. Sorry. The same rhythm. A psychological feeling of the time, it's basically different. For example, somebody before the exam, the time is spent very slowly. Therefore, the psychological reception of the time is maybe different, but objective approach is the same rhythm, like a metronome, dum, 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 dum. It's spent the same rhythm. Irreversible, because according to 19th century definition of the time, only one way out from the recent time to the direction of future. No chance traveling back with machinery of time to the past. Only one way, irreversible. Which happened? It's a closed, it's deed, it's closed situation. No go back. This is the meaning of irreversibility. And finally, cumulative. It's not so easy to understand, but we can imagine the cumulative nature of the history. Everybody knows the puzzle, the play of puzzle. And according to historian of 19th century, imagine the human history, a giant puzzle. And the human deeds one piece to the puzzle. And the strategy of the 19th century historian take the right place, the good pieces of the puzzle, and finally we'll understand the meaning, the painting of human history. But there is a weakness of this parallel, because the deeds of human, it's increased time by time, therefore the size of puzzle is growing. It's not so easy to understand, but this was the strategy. It's accumulate, the deeds of human accumulate. This was the traditional strategy. But at the turn of 19th and 20th century appeared a new concept concerning the time. It's a cycle. It's a cycle. Cycle means that introduced the cyclical concept of time by economists. There are economic student of Faculty of Economics. Only one today. Okay, why so important? Because who are the best paid economists at the beginning of 20th century? The broker in the stock of exchange. And how able to increase the salary and income by broker. Able to forecast what will happen in the following days, following weeks, following month on the stock of exchange. How? How we are able to forecast the future? Recently, there are two strategies of forecasting of future. The first one, it's a process analysis, making long time series, for example, production, for example, salary, for example, prices, and if we are able, because founded in the 19th century, the first Office of an Institute of Statistical Sciences and Disciplines, and collected together huge quantity of data. This was not the first one big data revolution, and tried to follow how changed the production, how changed the prices, how changed the salaries, and try to describe this process following the repeating, some moving. This is the cycle. Some moving on the price and economic indicator, repeat. And look at, for example, this one approach to the cycle. If we are buying, for example, some products on the stock of exchange, on the bourse, low price, and we sell in high price, this is our benefit. This is the strategy of time series analysis. There is a weakness of forecasting based to the time series analysis. We can calculate with the knowledges which are recently well known on the time of making of forecast. This is the one strategy. Other strategy, a modeling of situation. The simplest version of the model is a model of automaton. You know the automaton. It's a Coke automaton. Take one coin, receive one bottle of Coke. This is the simplest version. But majority of model more complicated because there is a lot of power, a lot of influence, a lot of consequences of the influence, but two strategy. And the time concept of the cycle appear in the circle of economists. Not by chance, Kitchin, a British economist, introduced a 40-month cycle. Juglar, it's a French economist, 6 to 8 years long cycle, and the Kondratiev 40 to 60 long cycle. This is the typical economical approach to the problem of the cycle, because this is the longest one. It's the longest one. It's a deep, long cycle in the economy. But historians try to apply the concept of the cycle. For example, Ernst Labrus, a French scholar, on the time of Second World War, no, it's a lot of free time at home, analyzed the background of French Revolution. And he described a 10 to 12 years long bad part of this cycle before the French Revolution. And more interesting, Fernand Braudel introduced a new concept, a longer one, compared with the Kondratiev, a secular, more century-long cycle. Look at a short approach to the Braudel secular cycle. Braudel followed the model of Kondratiev. It's a one cycle we can describe with A and B part. And we can describe, according to Kondratiev and Braudel, one cycle with help of three data: starting date, turning date, and closing date. If we are approaching to, for example, evolution of world economy system, we are living recently in the world economy system, but according to Braudel, formation of world economy system started in the middle of 13th century. This is the starting. Why? Because European economy, agriculture and industry was able to produce surplus, and on the tunnel and the network of trade able to change the surplus. Starting date, formation of European economy. A turning date was in the middle of 14th century. It's possible you listened about the Black Death. Black Death. It's a great plague. It was the deepest humanitarian or natural disaster of European history, because before the plague, population of Europe 90 million, after the plague 7 years long time. It's a real apocalyptic period. Left only 60 million. Each third people died. It was the deepest disaster. Okay, this is the turning point, and the closing date approximately the beginning of 16th century. Why? Because this is the dawn of great geographical discoveries. Columbus discovered the way to Central Americas. Later, Cortes conquered Aztec Empire, Pizarro, the Inca Empire, and discovered way to the Australia, New Zealand, China, everywhere. Europe discovered the world and constructed the network of trade connection. This is the dawn, and opening a new way, a modern world. Okay, the second cycle started when closed the first, and the turning point is the middle of the 17th century. Why interesting? Because this is the period of decline of Mediterranean world. Because in the Middle Ages, the richest part, whole of Europe, a Mediterranean world. And in consequence of geographical discoveries, Atlantic Ocean rose and the Mediterranean world down, decline. This is the turning point. And closed the second cycle in the middle of 18th century. Why? This is the down period. This is the down before Industrial Revolution and before the political revolution of the French Revolution. Okay, the third cycle starts when closed the second one, and the turning point is more exactly defined date 1817. Why? Because a lot of innovation proliferated whole of Europe. Which innovation? For example, nationalism. Nationalism. It's a new innovation. If we are looking at the history of the countries, it's now based to the common language and the common culture. Look at, for example, Hungary. Hungary on the Middle Ages and early modern time, which was the most important barrier between the different groups of the Hungarian population. The social status. If somebody was a nobleman, it's closed social order. Which is the second one? Citizenry. It's a closed circle. Not important that Armenians or German or Jews or Hungarians, more important the social status and the peasantry. Peasantry was the most populous part of the society. But in consequence of French Revolution and the general transformation of Europe, the guiding force, you know which is the guiding force, which construct generally the personal and the group motivation of European population. Guiding force became the common language and the common culture. Made a lot of tension, because area, like for example, Austro-Hungarian monarchy, lived 17 minorities together. On the time of traditional empire is no problem, because obviously if somebody arose from the peasantry, made member of nobility, no problem. Changed, it was a elevator, social elevator, move up. And no problem that Czech or Slovakian or Armenians or Hungarian, no problem. It's a multilingual area. For example, probably you know the name of Zrínyi Miklós. Zrínyi Miklós, one of the greatest heroes of Hungarian military history. But the Croatians describe the greatest hero of Croatian military history. On the not compatible, the national approach to the approach of empire. And officially, probably you know, that official language of Hungary was Latin until 1843. Therefore, empire, this is the diets of reform period. It's happened between 25 to 48. This was the closing reform diets. Okay, this is the turning point. Appearance of nationalism. The closing date of the third cycle is the last decade of the 19th century. Why? Because the beginning of 20th century, this is a slope to the First World War, with the local wars in the Balkanic Peninsula, wars in the Northern Africa. This is the last peaceful decade. And the fourth cycle start when close the third one. And the turning point is 1974. Why? Because in this period, in these years, closed the greatest economic recovery which happened ever in the human history after the Second World War. Because 3 decades produced very high rate of economic growth. Unbelievable manner. Never before and never after. This period closed in the middle of 70s. And recently, if we are looking at the global cycle, it's going down. It's not final truth, it's possible not true. At the beginning of this course, I spoke about the weakness of rational cognition. Weakness of rational cognition, it's no final cognition. But it's, according to recently, a generally accepted cycle description of cycle time concept based with description of the formation of world economic system. Why interesting for us? Because the meaning of norms change time by time. If somebody living in the age of Great Black Death, this is the norm. The living condition of the disaster, this is the norms. If somebody living a great recovery at the end of 19th century, this is the norms. Therefore, like for example, a waving ocean, all position of the ships, this is the normality of the life. Okay, jump. But if we are looking the history, we can describe some even, linear, irreversible, and cumulative. For example, this is the green line, exponential growth. It means exponential growth. One of the most interesting data are world population. For example, 60,000 years ago in Africa, before Christ, 60,000 years ago, the population, whole of the human population, lived in Africa, counted 5,000 people. No more, 5,000. It was the age of natural disaster, a huge drought period. Human species on that time was on the very, very close to the extinction, total extinction. 5,000 only. But at the beginning of Christian calendar, estimate the human population 300,000. 300 million, sorry, 300 million. At the beginning of Christian calendar. 1 milliard estimate at the beginning of 19th century. Okay. Write somewhere because it's decreased a little bit. 60,000 before, so 60,000 before Christ, 5,000. On the, not zero, but the first Anno Domini, so before Christ, Anno Domini estimate 300 million. Approximately 1820 estimate 1 million, or according to American English billion, but we are using the British English, more comfortable. 1 million. The closing year of Second World War estimate 2.5 million, and 2000 at the end of second millennium is estimated to 6 million. It's a huge jump, more than doubled until half century, more than doubled human population. And recently, approximately, it's estimated 8 million. Therefore, a demographer discusses a lot about it endlessly will increase until the natural disaster or no. My guess today, it's which event will close the exponential growth of humankind. Natural disaster. Who vote in the natural disaster? We are using the democratic skills. Who vote on the natural disaster? Nobody? Natural processes will close. Automatically will close the growth. Or you are reluctant? No opinion. This question so sensitive. Yeah, we're closed spontaneously. Why? Because there is a process. It's named demographical transformation. Somebody know a demographical transformation? Nobody? Okay. Very simple model. If we are using a fertility and the mortality of human population, we can separate 4 periods. On the traditional time, before the Industrial Revolution, before appearance of modern curing, fertility and mortality of population changed around 40 per 1,000. For 100 people, birth and death, it's 40, change around, it's a 40,000. You know, it's a very simple statistical terms. If, for example, this is a scattered line, it's a birth, and the continuous line, it's a death. Some period of birth, higher rate, of fertility higher, increased a little bit the population. When the death higher, decreased a little bit population, but generally, in long term, the population was stable, with small differences. But when appeared an Industrial Revolution, the situation basically changed. Why? Partly for revolution of trade and transportation. Why so important? Because, not by chance, in the traditional time, the biggest cities founded in the seaside, lakeside, or riverside. Because only one form of transport was able to transport huge quantity of foods. A water-based form of the maritime or river-based, or for example Stockholm, it's a capital of Sweden, founded on the side of Mälaren lake side. Because it's exceptional situation. But in consequence of appearance and proliferation of railway network, a huge quantity of meals and the foods, quite moderate price, able to transport everywhere. Therefore, a security of feeding, you know, there is a Hungarian term, élelmiszerbiztonság. Security of feeding improved a lot, because no chance for the local hunger, local scarcity, because there's railway network able to compensate the differences in the local harvest. First. Secondly, agriculture improved a lot. Appeared fertilizers. The first form of the fertilizers appeared even at the beginning of 19th century. And later, a huge quantity of fertilizer, artificial material, improved the fertility of the soil, proliferated. Therefore, productivity of agriculture and carrying capacity improved, and the revolution of transport improved the security of feeding. Therefore, rate of the mortality decreased very quickly. But very important peculiarity of demographical transformation, that fertility left very high. Why? Because in peasant society, 90% of the society peasantry, no pension, no social security, and in the household of peasantry, very important, the power of the children. And in peasant society, since 8 years old boy or girl, there is a working power. Shepherd, for example, beside the sheep or goats or cows, or working together with parents. Therefore, partly work power. Secondly, social security. Social security, no pension for the old peasant. Therefore, survival of old peasant depend on the number of child. Moreover, on the traditional time, the infantile mortality of the children, very high. 50%. Only for one adult necessary two child. Because each second die before the 10th anniversary. Therefore, oversafe fertility system of the peasant. Work power, social need. It's general concept of the traditional time that the fortune of poor people, a lot of child. This is the fortune of them. Okay, but in consequence of transformation, modernization of society, increased the urban population, a lot of peasants moved to the urban area, position of the child transformed basically. Why? Because introduced a mandatory form of education. For example, in Hungary at the end of 19th century, for the ministry of Eötvös József, it was a mandatory perform and taking the elementary school at least. And a child became from work power the source of expenses. Therefore, moreover, improved the curing, therefore decreased the infantile mortality. In consequence of that, started to decrease the fertility too. And after some time, around 10 per thousand, stabilized even the mortality and the fertility too. This is the process of transformation. First time happened in England, later in the continental western part of Europe, later in central part of Europe, and proliferated everywhere on the world. This is the transformation. We can separate 3 phases. The first phase is a traditional time. High mortality, high fertility. The second one, decreased mortality, but fertility stay in high level. Each following generation more populous than the former one. This is the second one. And the third is increase the population, but the population number, generation number, decrease generation by generation. And the fourth phase is the modern stable condition, it's much lower, the fertility and the mortality too. Each population which transform on the demographical transformation follow the same trajectory. The last example, probably you know, China. China, which was produced a huge increase of population in whole of the 20th century, recently arrived to the fourth phases. But in the case of China, probably you listened about the one-child system. In consequence of one-child system operating in traditional time. In the traditional time, this is the nature of the traditional time, a value of boy is higher than the value of girl. Therefore, a tree of generation in China, it's very asymmetrical. 50 million of girls missing from the side of generation of female and the male oppositely. And recently, if political decision, the political power take into the demographical processes, generally, like in the case of China, unstabilize the demographical processes. Recently, the most popular form of the finding a couple, it's taking how the name is taking a couple advertisement in the journal of North Korea, because the women from North Korea, with help of marriages, may escape. This is the one way out from the dictator, under the dictatorship of Kim Jong-un. And this is the, and for example, other peculiarity, time by time on the green boundary, North Korean women escape to China without passport and without legal procedure, and China, the women never take back to North Korea. The boys is everybody sent back to the prison and to the execution, of course, that women never. This is somehow a political, soft political adaptation to this situation. Okay, world population, according to demographical forecast, will stabilize between 12 to 16 milliard, according to forecast, which I read last time. The second one, energy per capita. Energy per capita. If we are looking at the human evolution, which were the source of energy? A muscle. A human muscle, no more, no more. But after the agrarian revolution, completed with muscle of domesticated animals, camel, cattle, horses, and the domesticated animals generally, and with help of simple devices like windmills, like water mills. No more, no more. And after the Industrial Revolution, activated the fossil fuels. As I mentioned in the last week, recently, a little bit, we are living in the trap of technical revolution, because we are using devices which majority, except the nuclear power, invented even in the 19th century. The electrical engine, combustive engine, everything invented in the 19th century, and we are using fossil fuels, even now, like at the turn of 19th and 20th century. And if we are approaching the new generation of cars, it's electric cars, it's not a real invention. Why? Because basically the energy which necessary to the electrical engine produced with nuclear power, and some area, for example in China, based to the coal, the oldest one, which used even at the beginning of the 19th century. Therefore, it's an electrical car, no real breaking out from the technological trend. Okay, energy per capita. Follow this trajectory. And not necessary to mention, recently in the modern world, based to the two pillars, a cheap energy and a cheap water. We think that it's not cheap because necessary to pay the bills, but in historical comparison, it's a very cheap. It's a very cheap. Because recently, everybody able to pay the energy for electrical surface, for any others. Very interesting to compare the living standards of Roman Empire. Roman Empire. I spoke about the energetical slaves, no? American environmental historian invented and introduced the concept of energetical slave. Which is the energetical slave? It's introduced because not easy to imagine how many quantity of energy we are using day by day. For example, kilojoule or watt, or it's very no easy to understand anyway. It's too statistical. Therefore, invented an energetical slave. Which is the energetical slave? Energetical slave, one human. It's 70 kilogram. It's gender proof. It's not important male or female. One human, 70 kilograms, and working continuously without vacancy and break 24 hours. This is one energetical slave. My question, my guess, one modern people in United States, because calculated first time at the United States, how many energetical slave using day by day? Switch on the light, switch on the computer, television, electrical oven, and so on and so on. One day, how many unit energetical slave using? Number 20. One offer.
10.
10. At the United States, 78. This is average. One more, one less. In Europe, because it's a more saving population, only 65. Why interesting for us? Because we are living, like in the Roman Empire, rich aristocrats, which have, for example, because a real slave necessary to saving and offering time of recovery, sleeping or resting, and so on and so. Therefore, each of us living according to focus and the telescope and the concept, point of view of using of energy like the richest aristocrats of the Roman Empire, of the Greek civilization. And indicate well this number that the energy practically cheap and feasible for everybody. In Nigeria, it's possible the population living more or less, only 10 or 5 energetical slaves, but in the modern society using so much. And finally, information. It's exponential, a real exponential, because at the beginning of cultural civilization, because beside the biological evolution, we have to recall a cultural evolution. What means the cultural evolution? Cultural evolution means that the people passed generation by generation the basic knowledges of survival. But the next milestone, appearance of writing. You know the name of Noam Chomsky? Noam Chomsky. No? It's very important in this context. Noam Chomsky, very famous linguistics. American linguistics. And his theory about the universal grammatics, it's generally concepted theory. Universal grammatics, nobody? No? No. Okay. Universal grammatics mean on our brain there is a grammatical structure. It's based to the DNA. I don't know why. There is a structure. But the structure, the grammatical structure, in with empty brackets for words. Therefore, the humans, after the birth, able to learn one language very quickly. If somebody take to the Eskimos environment and society, Inuit more closely, or Japanese or Hungarian or any African or Madagascarian community will learn the local language very quickly, because the structure of language inside of the brain, the brackets only necessary to fill in, any other, but the writing is different. But the learning the language, the structure of the language, and I have 3 daughters and 1 son, and it was very interesting following the how learn the language, and very interesting that use the language regular manner, and learning the exception was the most problematic element. I tell a Hungarian example for that. Tehát például Bandi fiam, mikor tanult beszélni, későn tanult beszélni, de minden érdekel, sokat beszél, de akkor én nem. És példának okáért elképesztően nehezen tanulta meg a kivételeket. És döbbenetesen használta szabályosan a nyelvet, ahogy a szabályosan kellett. Tehát például nagyon hiú volt a drágám azóta is, és amikor valakit megdicsértünk, hogy milyen szép, akkor az volt az első válasza, hogy de én szépebb vagyok. Szépebb. Mert hogy az, hogy szebb, az egy szabálytalan fokozás. És hát ez is, meg volt még néhány hasonló, ami alátámasztotta azt, hogy van egy rendszer, ami szabályos. Benne az agyában. Okay, turn back to English because this is an English-based course. Information. The second phase, learning the language, according to Chomsky, there is a universal grammatics inside the brain, and the next milestone is a writing, the next milestone a printing, and the third milestone electronic making of information. And we are living in the electronic form of information, and the information exponentially growing recently. Somebody knows that on the internet, on the web, how many percent we can approach with the simple Google Finder program. How many percent? Some days ago I met with an expert of science of information. Okay, we are starting with the guess. With the Google Finder, how many percent we are able to find internet, web? How many percent? 10%. 10%. And how many percent is a deep or dark web? Yes, that was 60%. This is the proportion, because like an iceberg floating on the ocean. Only 10% we are able to approach in normal Finder algorithm. No other. And the 60% is a dark. Okay, only we are speaking about the information. Okay, John, look at the space. Look at the space. We are over the time. If we are approaching to the question of the space, we are open, for example, a map of history in secondary school. At least 3 information we can identify in historical school map. The first one, distance. On the corner of the map there is a scale, how we have to transform a real distance from the distance on the map. The second one, a surface. Look at, for example, this map. A green surface means valleys or plain area, and a gray, a mountain or hilly area. There is a geographer, no geographer in the audience, no. Because very important, there is a special knowledge, reading of map, because on the map, on the real, more complicated map than these simple historical map, there are a lot of different icons and signs and and if somebody well educated, for example, in the military maps, able to picking huge quantity of information. Therefore, not only the verbs or the texts able transform and made information, but the map, reading of map, is a special knowledge. For example, if somebody engineer of piping system for example, one city, there is a special maps. And from reading of special maps, able to identify not only the pipe network, but the depth and the position in the 3 dimension of the pipes. There is a special knowledge. Okay, but it's a simple approach, landscape. And, for example, a political structure. This is a Germany, and the majority of German history unfolded in provinces. Bavaria, Saxony, Thuringia. It's a different country were before the German unification. And identity is very different. If somebody Bavarian or Prussian, it's not the same category. For example, during my university studies, I lived together in the student hostel. A Prussian came from Berlin. It's a Prussian core area around the capital. And all the time unfolded a project that the Soviet Union launched astronauts to the space. One Hungarian some days ago lectured in the library Farkas Bertalan on the first and the last Hungarian astronauts. And in this series, one German astronaut launched to the space. And to my fellow, I told Bernd, named to Bernd Radke, Bernd, it's a great news, a German there is on the space. And replied to me, it's not German, only Saxon. Because on the hierarchy, highest one a Prussian, Bavarian is the lowest, and between these there is a Saxon. It's not real German. A real 5 stars German is only the Prussian. It's a political structure. Okay. The second one, if we are approaching to the problem of the space from the point of view of geography, which is the science of space, we can use a lot of theory of space, but the simplest one is a theory of spheres, a geographical spheres. We can separate 5 traditional and 2 new wave geographical spheres. The first one, lithosphere. It's a rock sphere. If we imagine the Earth, we can separate 3 zones. The core area made from iron. The mantle area, we can some test from the mantle area on the case of volcano eruption. Came from the mantle. Very high temperature, it's a fluid rock material came on the volcano. And the crust around the Earth, this is the lithosphere. Size of the lithosphere change between 140, 160 kilometers. Like on the apple, it's a crust. The second one, a pedosphere. A pedosphere made from the lithosphere. And very important to realize that size of the pedosphere, the soil, only half meter. Half meter. Why so important? Then only the average size of the pedosphere, half meter. Because our survival depends on the soil. Because this is the subject of agriculture. And survival of humankind depends on the half meter. Moreover, in the developed country, it's not a real soil. Because took under chemotherapy, fertilizer, pesticide, everything. It's a chemotherapy. It's not a real soil. Pushing a lot of fertilizer and killed the biological beings, each of biological beings of the soil. It's an artificial soil made in the modern world. But it's a great dilemma. Why? Because without fertilizer, no meals for 2 million people. The traditional agriculture recently able to produce food for 6 million. 2 million in consequence of modern agriculture. It's very deep and very harsh dilemma. Okay, hydrosphere, this is the larger part of the Earth. 71% of Earth covering by global ocean. Biosphere, each plants and animals, flora and fauna. Atmosphere, it's very interesting because the atmosphere, we are living on the deep depth of the atmosphere because majority of atmosphere locate under 30 kilometers. 90% of gases and 100% of water vapor under 30 kilometers. If somebody traveling for an even in Hungary, because not a high mountains, the highest one is a Kékestető. If you are going up, it's very easy to feel on the ears changing of air pressure, and necessary to choking and somehow it's a respiration to stabilize inner and outer air pressure. But if we are going up, for example, upper boundary of the atmosphere 100 kilometers. But no easy to define the upper boundary because so low the proportion of the gases and any others, vapors, no vapor, only gases, that only there is estimation about the upper limit of the atmosphere, but we are living on the depth of the atmosphere, and then going up, for example, it's great, how the name is, it's a great challenge for the body. For example, on the mountain, the highest mountain, able to hiking with help of oxygen. You know, it's typical that the hikers, it's chewing oxygen above 6 or 7,000 meters. And my favorite photo from the Mount Everest, that free hiker, it's breathing oxygen, and behind them 2 Sherpa, you know who are the Sherpa, living in the Himalayan mountain and socialized to the not so high concentration of the oxygen and smoking. It's a very funny photo, and the free Italian hiker is drinking the oxygen and 2 Sherpa is smoking, because the vitality capacity of the lungs, it's a little bit more efficient of them. Okay, and anthroposphere, it's a new wave of the geographical, new innovation of the geographical sphere conception. Anthropo means human, sphere. Anthroposphere means this building, asphalted surface, everything which constructed by human. It's very dangerous for the nature, because you can imagine this, for example, Szeged city, like a desert. Ecological sense, this city or each city a desert. Why? Because we are covering everywhere asphalted surface. Therefore, no chance for rain and everything. It's going into the soil. Therefore, until the city, there is a desert, a total desert, without any biological being, no water, because the strategy of the city logistical management is water regulation and flowing down to the direction of dikes and direction to the river bed, and therefore no real vegetation, no real biological life under the city. It's a totally desert. If we turn up, for example, this city, only it's gunpowder dry soil, nothing. Therefore, when appears some area, a human civilization, it's execution for the biological ecosystems. Okay, but recently with high speed increased the anthroposphere. And the noosphere, it's mean intellectual cover around the world. Recently identified to the internet. This is the biological sphere, not biological, intellectual sphere around the world. Okay, the next space concept, ecological concept. The ecological concept, ecosystem concept, it's not similar like a geography, because not the spatial unit analyzed like a unicorn. Not necessarily take a construction like a Matryoshka doll, you know Matryoshka doll, it's a Russian, it's a larger and the middle and the smaller one, take one to other. Ecological concept of space focuses to the unique nature of the ecosystem. Maybe one ecosystem, a puddle on the both side, and whole of the world, whole of the earth. Maybe one ecological unit, a Carpathian mountain, maybe Andes. It's analyzed as a unique ecosystem. And the last one, it's a mental space. A mental space means each human, there is an imagination on the brain, imagination about the world. Which are the most important peculiarity of imagination of world? The first one, subjective. Look at, for example, this is a typical geographical map published in Australia. For Australia, the core area of the world, Australia, of course. And Hungary and Europe, there is in the right corner, United States in the left corner. Because we are Australia, subjective. The second one, look at a real mental map. Somebody know, there is some knowledge about the mental map? No knowledges? A mental map making is very easy. Somebody participating in the mental map making receive a white sheet. For example, you are living in Szeged, receive a white sheet and ask you draw for example, buildings which you remember and locate to the white sheet, no any geographical hub, to the right place which you remember. And a little bit more directed mental mapping, for example, draw the buildings and the crossroads and bus station and everything from, for example, your lodging, student hostel or other, you are settled and somewhere to the university. And very interesting, second peculiarity of brain and the mental map, the selectivity. Not like a GPS, each detail on the right place. Majority of people who traveled on the same trajectory from the lodging to the working place, for example in the United States, because the first experiment made in Chicago, in northern part of the United States, majority of the environment no memories. No memories. Only the places where necessary to take a decision. Right, for example, crossroads, right, left. That's right, right. Turn right. Or bus station, metro station. No info. Why? Because using the brain, it's very expensive. 26% of energy using the brain. Therefore, our body try to save the energy, and not interesting situation, probably you know this situation, change, turn off, standby. Because it's very expensive using the brain. Switch on, standby. Therefore, the brain, but some very tiny minority, there is a photographical memory. It's very, very dangerous, because the people who are a photographical memory, a lot of data, but not able to change how the name, it's a weighting, which is important and which not important. Each information important, because the brain functions like a photo machine, take. But the normal situation, the brain able to weighting, which is important, which is not important, selective. And then the third one, subjective, selective, and the third one, emotion. All spatial memory, emotion. If somebody had an accident, for example, I have one place around the plaza, to the direction of highway to the direction of Budapest. I had a small accident, but my stomach is up when I approach into the place of my accident. But other example, which described in the United States, in Chicago, tested children, elementary school. Proliferated photos from different districts of Chicago, and some part of the child wrote emotion beside the picture. For example, a building with swimming pool. A middle class child wrote joy, happiness, and similar. And the immigrant, hate. Why? Because looking the swimming pool from the other side of the fence. Therefore, we are on our mental map emotional element about our spatial memories. Look at our mental map of Paris. It's prepared at the beginning of great career of mental map by American Stanley Milgram. This is the rank list of, it's quite a moderate size experiment, participated less than 400 inhabitants of Paris. The first one, Seine River, which draw into the mental map and wrote the name of the Seine River. It's somebody visited in Paris? Yet not? I suggest you, one of the best places of Europe. But I suggest you learn French, because the French people never learn any foreign languages. Therefore, using the French, this is the best way for that. Okay, Seine River. Obviously, because it's crossing two halves of the city, therefore not easy to avoid meeting with the Seine River. The second one, outskirts of the Paris. Why? Because the downtown of Paris is very expensive, leaving the rich people and the tourists, no more. The banlieue, as the French people, it's outskirts of the city. The third one, it's a great jump, only 21.9%. Arc de Triomphe, it's at the end of Champs-Élysées, which constructed by Napoleon. Notre Dame, half of the participants remember the place of Notre Dame. The fifth one, Tour Eiffel. Obviously, this is one of the symbols of Paris. And very interesting, the sixth one is winner of Olympic Point, Bois de Boulogne. Bois means forest. Forest of Boulogne. Forest of Boulogne. Somebody know why so important? one forest for the Parisian. No? No idea? Because this is the core area of prostitution. And very interesting, in the marketing there is an indicator of intensity of information. Intensity of information calculate the potential consumer know or don't know the information. Who are the potential consumer of prostitution? Middle class male people. On the experiment participated half female, half male. And 49.1% not only remember this place, but was able to draw in the right place. Therefore, according to intensity of information, this is the most intensive information. Okay, good. Next week we will start with the case studies, but today, because we are close to the introductory chapter, we will start in the next week with the case study.